All right, so picture this. You're stepping into the UFC octagon for the very first time. It's your debut fight. You're up against a seasoned veteran, and all eyes are on you. That's exactly what Ilia Topuria faced, and his story is one of crazy perseverance and dedication. We're diving deep into Topuria's journey today, his rise in MMA, the challenges he's overcome, and what makes him such a captivating fighter. We've got his biography as our guide, and let me tell you, it's a wild ride.
Yeah, it's not just your typical fighter's rise to the top. It's a story about how his path was shaped way before he even thought about MMA.
Right, so we're not talking about some natural-born talent who just walked into the octagon and dominated. There's a deliberate, almost strategic build-up to his success. Topuria wasn't born into some fighting dynasty, you know?
Exactly. This isn't some Rocky story.
He was born in Germany to Georgian parents,
Yeah.
and later they moved to Spain. What's fascinating is how each of these places has really left its mark on
Oh,
him.
absolutely. You can see it so clearly in his fighting persona. It's like this blend of raw intensity and calculated grace.
It's almost like a matador.
Exactly. He's got this primal energy, but he's also incredibly controlled.
That's why they call him El Matador, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a cool nickname. It's like a window into how he approaches every fight.
It really is.
But before we get to all that, let's rewind a bit. We need to go back to his roots. He started with Greco-Roman wrestling, which is a pretty big deal in Georgia, isn't it?
Huge. It's practically a national sport.
Yeah, and that's where it all began for Topuria. Greco-Roman wrestling is known for its discipline and mental toughness, right?
Absolutely. It teaches you to conquer yourself before you conquer your opponent.
And it seems like that's a lesson Topuria really took to heart.
Oh, yeah. You can see it in everything he does.
So he had this incredible foundation of self-discipline even before stepping into the octagon. The biography actually mentions that when Topuria did transition to MMA, despite being young, his maturity in the cage really surprised a lot of people.
Yeah. It's not something you see every day, especially in a young fighter.
And that's where that early wrestling background really comes into play, doesn't it?
For sure. It gave him an edge both physically and mentally.
He is already used to that pressure cooker environment, the one-on-one intensity. So his 2020 debut against Youssef Zalal, a fighter with way more experience, that wasn't just beginner's luck, was it?
Not a chance Topuria didn't just win. He dominated.
It was a statement.
Absolutely. He showcased this incredible blend of grappling and striking. It completely threw Zalal off.
Everyone was watching like, who is this guy?
Exactly. Putting the whole MMA world on notice.
And I think that's where the El Matador nickname really starts to click. It's not just about Spain. It's about this aura of control, of calculated aggression. Like you said, it's like a matador facing a bull. There's a certain artistry to it.
And you know what's interesting? The biography actually talks about how Topuria sees that connection himself. He's mentioned in interviews that he admires the matador's courage, the way they face danger head on.
So it's like a metaphor for his fighting style.
Yeah. It's like he's not just fighting to win, he's fighting to dominate. He's putting on a show.
And the crazy thing is he can connect with audiences all over the world. The guy speaks Georgian, Spanish, and English fluently.
That's right.
It's like a secret weapon.
It's a level of strategy that most fighters don't even consider.
Right. It's like he's building a global fan base one language at a time.
Exactly.
And you know what else? This ties into something the biography really dives into. Topuria's philosophy that mental strength is just as crucial as physical ability.
Oh, absolutely. He's all about that.
He's big on visualizing success, seeing the win before it even happens.
It's a technique that's used by top athletes across all disciplines. And Topuria takes it seriously, almost like a ritual.
Like he actually pictures himself overcoming challenges, winning those crucial moments.
Yeah, and it's clear this isn't just some motivational fluff. It's a core part of his training.
It's like built into his DNA. And that's where things get really interesting. Because Topuria's journey isn't just this straight climb to the top. He's had to overcome some major challenges along the way.
Oh, yeah. He's had his fair share of setbacks, injuries, tough opponents who've pushed him to his limits. But that's what makes his story so compelling.
Right. It's not all sunshine and roses.
Exactly.
So let's talk about those challenges.
Topuria's faced setbacks, injuries, and tough opponents who've pushed him to his absolute limits. But here's the thing, and this is where I think his story gets really inspiring. He uses those challenges to refine his approach.
So it's not just about bouncing back, it's about understanding why you fell in the first place.
Exactly. The biography highlights how he actually studies his losses. He dissects them to figure out where he can improve.
It's like he's turning those losses into data points.
That's a great way to put it.
He's constantly analyzing, trying to get better.
And that's what sets him apart from a lot of fighters. He's got this incredible drive to evolve. He's not content with just being good. He wants to be the best.
It's like he's always leveling up.
Exactly.
And he's not afraid to step outside his comfort zone either. Look at his wins against Damon Jackson and Ryan Hall. Those were guys with completely different fighting styles.
Totally different approaches.
But Topuria adapted and came out on top.
And those wins weren't just about his power or his grappling, which, by the way, are both phenomenal. The biography describes how, in the Jackson fight, Topuria used this combination of feints and level changes to completely disrupt Jackson's rhythm.
It's like he was playing chess in the octagon.
It was a masterclass in strategy.
And that brings us to the Jai Herbert fight, which you mentioned was a real turning point in Topuria's career.
That fight was brutal. Herbert landed some heavy shots in the first round, and for a minute it looked like Topuria might be in trouble.
Like he might actually go down.
Yeah, it was a real test.
But that's where his mental game really kicked in, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's what separates the good fighters from the greats.
The biography talks about how Topuria, even when he's getting hit, never loses sight of his strategy.
He's always thinking, always analyzing.
It's like he's processing the fight in real time.
And then in the second round, bam, comes back with this explosive combination of strikes and knocks Herbert out cold.
It was a comeback for the ages.
It showed not just his physical toughness, but that incredible mental resilience we were talking about.
It's like that moment proved to everyone, and maybe even to himself, that he could weather any storm.
And you know what I love about that fight?
What's that?
Afterward, Topuria gave interviews in Spanish, English, and Georgian.
He did.
He was speaking directly to his fans in their own languages, sharing his emotions, his gratitude for their support.
It was brilliant.
It was a masterclass in connection building.
And it wasn't just about self-promotion.
No.
It was about sharing his journey, his struggles, his triumphs with a global audience.
It's like he was saying, this victory isn't just for me. It's for everyone who's ever supported me.
No matter where they're from.
Exactly. That level of cultural awareness is rare in the fight world.
Totally.
Yeah.
And right now, Topuria is standing at a pivotal point in his career. He's on this incredible winning streak.
Undefeated.
And he's made it clear he's aiming for the featherweight title.
He's not shy about his ambitions.
And he's not just talking about it. He's calling out the top contenders. He's actively pushing for that championship fight.
He's not leaving anything to chance.
The biography even reviews that he's adjusted his training regimen to specifically target the strengths of the current champion.
He's doing his homework.
This guy's laser focused. But beyond the title, what I find fascinating is how Topuria sees this as representing not just himself, but also Georgia and Spain.
He's carrying the hopes of two nations on his shoulders.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is.
But it's also a source of motivation for him.
It gives him a sense of purpose.
He wants to prove that a kid born in Germany, raised in Spain, with Georgian roots can rise to the very top of the UFC.
It's a powerful story.
And it's a story that's still being written.
Yeah.
So for all you listeners out there, think about this. What's your equivalent of the UFC title? What goal are you striving for that seems almost impossible?
And more importantly, how can you adopt Topuria's mindset? His focus, his preparation, his willingness to learn from setbacks, to reach that goal.
It's about finding that inner drive, that fire that pushes you beyond your limits. And Topuria's story is proof that it exists in all of us.
It's not just about physical strength or even talent. It's about resilience, the ability to get back up after a fall, to learn from your mistakes and come back stronger.
Yeah, and we can't forget about the mental game. The biography talks about how Topuria uses visualization not just to prepare for fights, but also to overcome those inevitable setbacks like injuries. He actually pictured himself rehabbing, getting stronger, and coming back to the octagon better than ever.
That's crazy. But it's the power of the mind, right? If you can see it, you can believe it, and eventually achieve it. It's a technique that's not limited to athletes.
Yeah.
We can all apply it to our own lives, our own challenges.
Totally. Whether it's a career goal, a personal project, or even just getting through a tough time, visualizing success can be a powerful tool.
Absolutely. It's about training your mind to focus on the positive, to see the possibilities even when things are tough. And you know what I find inspiring about Topuria?
What's that?
He doesn't sugarcoat his journey. He's open about the struggles, the doubts, the moments where he wanted to give up.
I mean, he's human, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes his story so relatable. We all face those moments of self-doubt. But what sets Topuria apart is that he never lets those doubts define him. He uses them as fuel to push himself harder.
He channels that energy, that frustration, into something positive.
And that's a lesson we can all learn from.
Absolutely. It's about turning those negative experiences into opportunities for growth.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Ilia Topuria's world, I think the takeaway here is more than just about MMA. It's about finding that inner El Matador, that fearless, determined part of ourselves that's ready to face any challenge head on.
It's about embracing the journey with all its ups and downs and using every experience as a stepping stone towards your goals.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll be talking about your story, about how you took inspiration from a UFC fighter and used it to conquer your own octagon. Until then, keep fighting the good fight.
Keep pushing forward.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.